Allah, we were supposed to have, or we are supposed to have a workshop on the Janazah. And we kind of divided the workshop to two segments. And the reason behind it is, like, alhamdulillah, we have right now our washing facility. It's up and running to be able to conduct the janazas. We have a funeral home director, Sheikh Afzal. He's in charge of that. And so we wanted to have this workshop because we wanted to give the community members, right, an idea of how to properly conduct those things. But also, if there is volunteers, and we do need volunteers, both from the males and the females, that would help with this. And so this is kind of like the start of, I guess, the process of making the community aware of the different aspects associated with it. And really, the workshop is divided into two components: the fiqh aspect, and then the more of the legal, procedural aspects of things. I will be conducting the first part, which has to do with the fiqh aspects of worship. And then Sheikh Afzal, he's coming later, inshallah. He will be conducting more of the legal, procedural aspects of the janazah, because there's something we need to be aware of. Considering that we live obviously in New Jersey, and New Jersey has its own laws and regulations that are associated with, for example, releasing the body, the burial processes, but also different cemeteries, they have different requirements. All these things, inshallah, Sheikh Afzal will deal with it. I will start first with the fiqh component of things, because this is more of the ritual aspect that are associated with both the deceased and the community member as a whole, of how we deal with that situation. Now, generally speaking, I'll be honest, when it comes to a fiqh workshop, a more comprehensive one tend to include about 4 segments, right? And we're not going to go through all 4 segments today. I might address maybe just 1 or 2 of them. So the first segment has to do with a washing of the body, essentially, washing the body of the deceased. The second segment has to do with the conducting of the janazah. The third has to do with the burial and the cemetery etiquettes. And the last one are ways to benefit others after the burial, which is more for the community members, but also the family after they go home, right? So generally, those are the 4 components associated with this whole thing. Today, inshallah, if I have time, I would like to go through the first 2, which is the burial procedure itself, so the washing of the body, the preparation of the body, and so forth, the fiqh aspect of it. Now, this is all going to be theoretical. Usually when we talk about a workshop, there is usually a hands-on component, but we can have that maybe for those who are interested to volunteer in the washing process, that we later on will have that practical component of the entire process of practically seeing with like a mannequin, the washing, the shrouding, so that be aware of it. That will be done both for males and females. So that will be like a second follow-up part if people are interested. Inshallah, you can approach us, we can do that, we can set up a time. We'll go through the washing facility, the back over here, and go through the process. But once again, this is purely theoretical. The second part is the fiqh of conducting the janazah prayer itself, right? And I'm going to mention this because living here in the States, there are obviously different schools of thought, right? They're more prevalent than we are, for example, if we go back to a home country. For example, if you're in Pakistan or India, mostly it's Hanafi, right? And so it's conducted a specific way. But here, you're going to encounter people with other schools of thought, so you need to be cognizant and aware of what is it that are the different opinions, so you can understand the different leeways, right, associated with it. If we have time, we might go into the burial, but I highly doubt it, because I wanted to give a few minutes at the end, anywhere between 15 to 10 minutes for questions. All right, we're good with this? Yes? Any questions so far? So, when we talk about the whole process, right, of preparing the deceased, right, all the way from the washing to the prayer to the burial, that is all called the janazah process, right? That is all called the janazah process, and it has a great significance in Islam, because it has to do with the rites, right? It's a rites, so it's more of an Islamic funeral rites, and they're performed mainly to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and forgiveness for the deceased, as well as to make dua for their peaceful transition to the hereafter. Right? Essentially, that's the heart of the janazah, and this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said one of the rights of the Muslim upon other Muslims is that they walk into their janazah, right, or attend their janazah, because this is the main aspect of it. Okay? Now, the importance of understanding the fiqh of janazah lies in the following aspects, right? This is why we're talking about this, like, the fiqh aspect. So, one is the proper execution, right? So, for us to execute anything properly, it has to have a knowledge base and a practical base. Okay, so we're starting over here with the knowledgeable base, and we can never execute anything properly without the proper knowledge. And so the fiqh provides us with the guidance of how to perform janazah process correctly, all the way from the dealing with the deceased after their death. Of course, if you open the books of fiqh, they start a bit before that, right? They start with the part of where the deceased is sick, right? Because usually for majority of people, there's a period of sickness that precedes the death. But they also talk about the etiquettes of the sick, you individuals, when you get sick, what do you do? The etiquettes of the other individuals dealing with the sick individual, transitions from there, and the moment of their death, what happens. This is what they tend to start the janazah process. I'm skipping all of that. I'm not starting with the person has already passed away, right? Because this is where we tend to usually, most of the time, come in and address it. The stuff before that, it's usually the family members, the friends. We should cover it. Hopefully, inshallah, we can, once we start our fiqh classes, our regular fiqh weekly classes, that inshallah we'll cover some of that, right? There's a plan, inshallah, coming in the future that we're going to cover the fiqh of acts of worship, starting from purification all the way until, if we want to put military expedition in there, we put military expedition. If not, then we'll stop at Hajj. That is the acts of worship. And it's important for us at least to cover that, right? The second component of fiqh is usually financial transactions. And then the third component is family matters. And the last one is more of the judicial system, right? But anyway, inshallah, we'll cover that a bit more in details later on. But the second importance of understanding the fiqh of janazah, because what it does, it provides the respect that is required for the deceased. So essentially, when we conduct whatever we're conducting, it emphasizes the respect and the dignity owed to the deceased, right? And so we understand the rituals and intentions behind the prayers. It really ensures that the deceased is honored at the level of appropriateness that they deserve, and it facilitates or helps them transition in the best way possible to the hereafter, right? So without knowing the halal and the haram, the rights and all these things, we might unintentionally violate the rights of the deceased. And so we have to make sure that we know those rights out of respect of that deceased. Because one thing we have to be aware of, whether they're alive or dead, it makes no difference. They have the same rights. This is why, for example, the Prophet ﷺ, he talked about the breaking of the bones of the deceased. He said it's exactly like breaking the bones of the person who's alive. No difference. The rules of awrah, for example, of the person when they're alive, they're exactly the same as when they're deceased, right? There is no change whatsoever, right? And so that level of respect, whether they're alive or dead, it has to be paid. Now, the last component of it, which is also important to know this properly, is because when you execute things properly, it really provides a lot of consolation and support for the family of the deceased, right? That's an important component of the janazah, which it does provide support and consolation for the condolences and support for the grieving family. And so knowing that fiqh allows individuals to participate in the prayers and with confidence and empathy, and knowing what is right, what is wrong, and if there's specific wishes, we understand whether that is in the area of permissible or not permissible, so we can appropriately address the matter in a way that is befitting of the circumstances. So that is almost like a bit of an introduction that I wanted to do before we go into the first part, which is the washing of the body of the deceased, right? So Sheikh Afzal, when he comes, he's going to talk about more of, Allah Alam, I think I didn't have a chance to talk to him, but just my experience conducting these workshops with him, he will deal with the whole aspect of bringing the body from the time the death is announced. So usually most of the time it's in a hospital. When he gets the phone call from the hospital or from the family members, the procedure until it is brought to the washing facility, right? And so right now, what I'm going to talk about is once the body comes to the washing facility that we have, what is the procedure, right? What do we do, and how is the washing conducted? Is there a difference between males and females, rights, and all these things, young and old, or children? All these things we're going to address in that first part. Okay. So I divided this part of the talk into about 4 components, right? So the first one has to do with a bit of a preparation, right? So the preparation. The second is the washing process itself. And the third is the shrouding process, right? And so actually it's 3 parts, okay? So the first one is the preparation, the washing, and then the shrouding, right? So from the beginning to the end of that. And then we're going to do the Janazah prayer itself, provided that we have time to do this, inshallah. So when we talk about preparations, this is like, essentially before the washing happens. So this is once you receive the body. There are certain recommendations that are associated with once you receive the body to make sure that they are in the right place before you start the washing, right? One of them is ideally, of course, this is done at the moment of death, but sometimes when the body comes in, that's not being done due to whatever circumstances, ignorance, it doesn't matter, but sometimes it happens. One of the sunnahs or recommendations is to make sure that the eyes of the deceased are closed, right? The other one is part of the recommendation is that we don't unnecessarily delay the whole process from the washing to the prayer and the burial, right? There's a common saying, they said, Ikramul mayyid dafnu, right? Ikram, which means being generous, and an aspect of dignifying the deceased is to hasten their burial. Right? Even there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he talked about carrying the deceased to the grave. He said hasten, because if it's something good, right? If it's something good for the deceased, you're hastening that goodness for them. Like, you're not delaying it. So if they're rewarded with having their graves vast for them and a gateway to Jannah opened for them in the grave, you don't want to delay that for them, right? But also on the other hand, if it's something that is bad, then it's something that you want yourself to not be associated with. You want to hasten also that for yourself. This is for your sake now, right? Because a soul like that, one of the things is you don't want to linger around for the effects that would affect you one way or another. Wallahu alam. طيب. One of the recommendations, in addition to covering the eyes, is making sure that the jaws are closed, right? Because they tend to, muscles tend to harden, right, once this happens. And so you want to make sure that the jaws are closed so that it won't continue open. One of the best ways to do it is usually to wrap something from the head around to the jaw, right, as much as you can as possibly. The other thing is, once they come in, is that you want to make sure that the clothes are removed, right? But of course, prior to doing that, you need to conceal the body, the awra area, at least appropriately. We're going to talk about that later on. What is the awra part of the body, and compared to who can do it, and so forth. But generally speaking, when it comes to removing the articles of clothing that the deceased had come in, most of the time those are thrown in the garbage, right? So we're talking about practical things over here. Practically, what's going to happen is with a scissor, you're going to be cutting those clothes off, right? Practically speaking, and those are going to be exposed in a biohazardous garbage component, whatever the case is, article that are properly disposed of later on, because one of the things that we have to make sure that we abide by is the biohazard removal of things that are associated in that room, right? Whether they are sharps, whether they are articles of clothing, whether there are fluids, things are in there that have to be disposed properly. But generally speaking, there will be a scissor. You just cut off the clothing of the deceased so you can make it easier for you to remove it, but make sure ahead of time that the body is covered appropriately. Now, until you are ready to wash the body, the sunnah is to completely cover the entire body. Right? The sunnah is to completely cover the entire body from head to toe. Okay, that is obviously the recommendation. Before we wash the body, what is recommended also is to kind of loosen the joints. Now, once again, there's stiffness. Most likely, the body is going to be coming from a fridge, right, or it has been in a fridge. So there's stiffness. For you to be able to wash the body properly, you need to move the body part. Like some of the body, sometimes you need to move the arm, whatever the case is. You don't want to break it, right? So you want to loosen it a little bit by kind of just massaging the hands, the arms, the joints and stuff like that, just moving it slightly around to kind of loosen that, right? This is what they mean when if you read the books of fiqh, is to loosen the joints, right? That's what they're talking about. So if you open any sort of book of fiqh, you're going to find that component in there. I'm not talking about the abridged versions of fiqh. I'm talking about the more of the prolonged, extended versions of books of fiqh. They talk about this, right? And so essentially it is so you won't break the skin essentially or break the bones unintentionally because they're stiff when you move them abruptly. So you want to loosen the joints a little bit, right? The elbow joints essentially kind of bend the here. Gently do that, right, until it's bent, and then bring it back again. Make sure it loosens, right? That's part of the fiqh associated with it. Now, once again, those aspects, things are a recommendation. It's not mandatory. So if a person forgets them and moves right away to the washing process, that is fine, okay? I'm just giving you the complete process of recommended from the beginning to the end with all the mandatory aspects, arkan, all fit in together, okay? We can talk about the details later on, inshallah, more of classes of fiqh. Like, the other thing is in addition to that, is depending on the kind of, I want to call it the washing bed. I'm going to call it the washing bed for now, right? Whatever the body the deceased is going to be placed on, usually nowadays they tend to have a drain at one part of it, but it is a good idea to put the body in a bit of an inclination, right? And the reason behind it is because as you wash the body, you don't want the water to remain around the body. You want it to kind of come down. But also at the same time, as we go through this, part of the process is you need to make sure that if there's any sort of najasa, it is also washed down into that drain, okay? So there's a bit of an inclination associated with it, and usually now there's controls that are associated with the bed that you can move it up and down and so forth, even rotate it, all these things. Like, alhamdulillah, for technology, it makes our life easier. A long time ago, they had to make sure that whatever they're washing on is propped, on an inclination to whatever thing they have to do, and then remove it, put it back down again. But alhamdulillah, nowadays things are a lot easier than before. Type. So now this is all done, right? And the body is ready to be washed, okay? So one thing we want to talk about is who performs the washing, right? Now, of course, provided that we're talking about whoever we're washing right now, the washing is done for a deceased Muslim. We're not talking about non-Muslims. We're talking about a deceased Muslim over here. When it comes to the non-Muslims, we don't conduct that kind of service. That is conducted by the non-Muslims for the non-Muslims. Muslims, they conduct that ritual for the Muslims, right? So who is it that washes the body? So when we talk about that, there's certain preferences and certain things that are mandatory. And so when we talk about washing the body, it is preferred that the person performing the ghusl is a person who's trustworthy and who's knowledgeable of the fiqh of ghusl, right? Because you want to make sure that the ritual is done properly. Because washing the body, by the way, is a communal obligation. Washing the body is considered a communal obligation. Fard kifaya. You want to learn that term. So there's two terms you want to learn when you learn any sort of fiqh. One is fard kifaya, and the other one is fard ayn, right? Communal obligation, individual obligation. An example of a fard ayn, individual obligation, is the 5 daily prayers, meaning that each one of us has to perform the 5 daily prayers. No one can perform it on your behalf. All right? That is, what's that called? Fard ayn, individual obligation. Fard kifaya, which is a communal obligation, all is required is that the action to be done regardless by whom does it. Of course, there's a reward for the one who does it, right? But the whole objective is that the action is performed, not that the individual performs it. And fard al-ayn is that the individual performs it. Fard kifaya is that the action itself is performed, okay? So if it is performed, then the obligation is fulfilled for the entire community, okay? The example of that is the washing for the deceased, right? Salat al-Janazah. All of that is fard kifaya, right? When we talk about also whom performs, so I'm going to divide this into different age groups, okay? So when it comes to children, children will say been under so from the age of discernment to under. What is the age of discernment? Do you guys know what age of discernment is? طيب. It's the age where the child, right, or Islamically, the child is considered to be capable of understanding halal and haram, right? To be able to fulfill orders, control their desires to some extent, be aware of if their prayer is nullified, their wudu is nullified, okay? That they're conscious of this. What age is that? 15. That's an adult. Age 7. This is why we said a discerning, not a discerning adult. We're not saying the discerning adult, a discerning child. Discerning, which means now they differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. They're capable of understanding what nullifies their prayer and what doesn't. This is why we teach the children to pray from what age? 7, right? In Arabic, it's called Sin Tamyiz, okay? Now, of course, there's a difference of opinion between scholars what age, but generally speaking, it is 7 years old, okay? So that is the age of discernment. So children from the age of 7 and under, of course, we're talking about Hijri calendar, not Gregorian calendar. We're talking about Hijri calendar. So children from this age of 7 and under, essentially these children don't have what is considered a awra. They don't have awra, okay? So if a child is running around, like, at that age, of course I'm not encouraging this, of course, but if they're running around not wearing, like, clothes, it's not haram, okay? The reason I'm saying this is because if you understand this, you understand that those who are allowed to wash a child from the ages 7 to under are both males and females, right? Males and females can both wash a child. Whether it's regardless whether they're mahram or non-mahram makes no difference because that child has no awra. Now the Shafi'i opinion is that, so this is like, this is the Hanbali opinion, right? So 7 and under. The Shafi'i opinion, they say that age can be extended a little bit more beyond 7 to an age where the child would not be considered desirable. Okay? No, it can be considered desirable. The other opinion within the Hanbali school of thought is that can be extended to 10 years old. Okay? I'm saying this because if you ever have a child come in to be washed, we want to make sure that we cover our bases. Who is it that can wash them? If it's a child 7 and under, it doesn't matter, male or female. Above 7, if we're going to take that opinion, then if it's above 7, if it's a boy, then a male has to wash them. Okay? If it is a girl above the age of 7, then definitely a sister has to wash that girl. All right? So we'll use those as the metrics. Okay? If we want to extend that to 10 years old, that's okay, but it should never go beyond 10 years old, especially for girls, because girls can reach the age of puberty starting at the age anywhere between 9 to, to 12. That's it. That's the maximum most girls have reached the age of puberty there, so you have to be very careful. Okay, that's why I prefer usually to abide by the Hanbali idea that if it's 7 and below, it is fine. Both males and females can wash the child. Above 7, we have to be careful. Let female wash females, males wash males, unless we are constricted, we don't have anybody, and then we might take the excuse up until 10 years. Okay, we're good with that? Excellent. طيب. Now, the other people who are allowed to wash is the washer himself and others that are attending to help, right? So attendees to help. Anything beyond that is disliked, okay? Because remember, when we're washing a deceased, there has to be a level of respect. We shouldn't have 10 people in the washing facility watching the wash. It is not haram, but it's definitely disliked, right? It's something that is disliked. So the people who should be only there washing the body at that time is the person who is doing the washing and all members that he needs for help. So you might need 1 helper, 2 helpers, 3 helpers. As long as they're there to help, that they're needed, that is fine. Anything beyond that is disliked, right? So nobody else should be involved out of respect for the deceased. Okay. Now, we're going to transition into the prerequisites for washing the deceased. Okay. So I'm saying this because alhamdulillah, usually these things are in place, but just in case we'd have a situation where we have to improvise. And so the prerequisites for the deceased to be washed is that they have to be washed with a purifying water. Okay? So obviously you can't use what's considered a pure water that has been changed or one of its qualities has been changed. So for example, if you use water that is filled with soap, that actually doesn't count. Like the water itself that you're using is used with soap. Of course, we don't have that here because essentially we're using tap water with facilities. We don't have that. But I'm talking about just in case, for example, if something happened and the water cut off, okay, and we need to use water, we tend to put it in buckets or pails, whatever the case is. And then some people, for some odd reason, they feel like, okay, I'm gonna put soap in there. That is no longer considered a purifying water. That's considered pure water, not purifying. We can't do that, okay? You can use that water, for example, to wash the hair, but you need purifying water, the same the one you make wudu with, to wash the body. Usually the scholars kind of mention that this water has to be also permissible, meaning that we didn't, for example, steal it from somebody else. We didn't, it's just something that is permissible, okay? We're not using the, if there's a water for waqf for people to drink from it, then we're not allowed to use it to wash, for example, right? I don't think most people who were born and raised in this country have never seen a waqf for drinking. But if you ever go back to some home countries, you'll find certain for example, fridges or water dispensaries that is considered a waqf for people to drink. You're actually not allowed to make wudu from that, right? Do you guys understand this or not? Yes? Any questions about this? You're good? That's important because a waqf, a person who left a waqf, which is an endowment for a specific purpose, we're not allowed to use it beyond that purpose. Yes? Can you what? That is fine. Yeah, that's fine. I'm saying soapy water as the first one, that is fine, but you have to make sure that the remainder is whatever. We're going to get to the soap water in a little bit, right? Because there's a specific ruling associated with it. طيب. Now, the other prerequisite is that the person performing the ghusl must be a Muslim, sane, and of age of discernment, okay? They don't have to be the age of puberty, which means that an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old can actually participate in the washing process, right? Of course, I know most parents will be like, no, right? My child doesn't do that. But I'm talking about, generally speaking, the rules associated with it, whether family members wanted their child to participate in this or not. This is up to them. This is something else that is beyond the rulings. But the person who's doing the washing, they have to be Muslims, sane, because they need to have an intention, and of age of discernment, because they need to know what they're able to do. Okay? طيب. Now, the washing process. Okay, so now we're dealing with the washing process. Now the body is on the table. Now the person is there with the helpers. They're going to start the washing process. Remember, the body is covered. Okay, so before the process happens, we need to remove that cover. How far do we remove it? So when we're washing, we can only move it as far as what we're allowed and permissible to, because we have to make sure that the awrah of the deceased is concealed. Whether they're dead or alive, they have awrah. Okay. Now, what dictates the awrah? Of course, now, just to set the stage up, the sisters are washing the sisters. The males are washing the males. Children underneath 7, males and females can wash them. Okay. Now, remember, a child 7 and under, they don't have children under 7. I don't mean 7 and under. Children under 7, they don't have awrah. Okay. They do not have awrah whatsoever. So if it's shown, whatever the case during the washing, that is okay. They're not strict about it, but we're talking about 7 years and above, they do have awrah, okay? So from the age of 7 to 10, what must be covered is the private part, the awrah itself, right? The private part, which is either the front or the back, essentially. That is what's required to be covered. The thighs don't have to be covered, the navel region doesn't have to be covered, but just make sure that the front and the back is covered for those children who are 7 to 10 years old. 10 and above, they're like the adult, okay? And so what has to be covered? Which part? From the navel region to the knees, okay? The navel region does not have to be covered. It starts from the navel, which means right below it, that's what has to be covered, to the top of the knee, okay? That one has to be covered. Not the entire knee, but the top of the knee. So essentially, there's a piece of cloth before you start, that is, or you can, whatever you call it, you can fold it until it's that area. Now that goes both for males and females, because that is the, remember, females are washing females, It means that also the awrah for females and for the females is from the navel to the elbow. Is that clear? Yes? Men, navel to knees. Right? So that has the first thing we have to make cover, right? Now, it is recommended that the entire process, it's a recommendation, is concealed from the public. It's concealed from the public, which reminds me. Okay, good, excellent. Because I know we have windows, right, on the facility, and I think it got covered. Is that right? Good, excellent, right? So the washing process should be concealed. It's recommended, by the way. Okay, it's recommended that the washing process should be concealed. A long time ago, they'll tell you conceal it in a tent, for example. So you're in a tent, it is concealed from the public eye. Once again, out of respect for the dignity of the deceased. One of the recommendations is that it is, for example, for males, if the mustache is long, it's recommended to trim the mustache. Now, I'm giving you generally speaking. Honestly, I've been in a lot of washing processes. They don't do that, right? Just because it takes a lot of time, it's a bit of a hassle. But I'm giving you the recommendations, the complete recommendations, because it's part of the knowledge that needs to be transmitted, okay? So if a male has a mustache that goes, they're long, it goes above their, lips, it is sunnah to trim that mustache, right? Not shave it, sunnah to trim it. It's also a sunnah or recommended to clip long nails. So if the nails are long, it's recommended to clip them. Now, what do we do with that hair and the hair clipping, the nail clipping and the mustache clips? What do we do with them? They're placed in the shroud with the deceased, right? They're buried with the deceased. So they're placed in the shroud of the deceased. Similarly, also, if the deceased has long armpit hair, it is recommended to remove it. It is not permissible to go anywhere or remove any sort of anything from the private parts, right? Because that require visual contact, and that should not happen, right? Yes? So generally speaking, not, because this is a fiqh aspect, and it's the washer who's doing it, right? Now, long time ago, almost everybody knew how to wash bodies. The question is, do we need to take permission from the family of the deceased to trim the mustache and the nails, right? I don't know about legally. I have no idea, right? But I'm talking about fiqh-wise, right? We can ask Sheikh Afzal about the legal aspect of it. But I don't think there's, hold on, you better ask him. But generally speaking, there is permission. By the way, a long time ago, right, people knew how to wash, right? In fact, for example, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the one that washed him was his wife. His wife washed Abu Bakr. So, which actually kind of reminds me, is it permissible for a spouse to wash their spouse? It is permissible. Okay, it is permissible for a spouse to wash their spouse. But in this case, if they need help, they make sure that the person helping them is a mahram, right? That can help them, essentially, right? They can be with them in the same room to do the washing. So for example, if a husband is washing his wife, then the person with him in that room should be his mahram, like his mother, for example, or his sister, or his daughter that they're washing, for example, the spouse. But also for the female, if she's going to wash the body, she needs the help, then her brother is helping her, or her father, or her son is helping her in the process, or her daughter, right? Preferably not the daughter, should not be washing her father, but that's okay in this case, wallahu a'lam. طيب. Out of the hair that's not permissible to remove is the beard, by the way, right, for men. Okay. طيب. It is disliked to comb the hair. And I'm saying this because we live in a Western culture. They do things differently, and sometimes we're affected by it. It is not recommended to comb the hair because it will result in unnecessary falling of the hair, right? So it's not recommended to comb the hair. Type. So when we start the washing, so after all this is set, we start usually washing by elevating the body, like the head, elevating it slightly to a slight inclination, essentially, right? And then lightly pressing on the stomach of the deceased. So the females will be doing this with the females, the men will be doing the men with this. And the reason you slightly and gently press on the stomach area, right, and the intestine area, is to make sure that there is no filth left inside, right? Because the last thing you want is to have to wash the deceased and shroud them, all of a sudden excrements come out. And because, like, things are being relaxed in there, it would happen, right? And so you want to make sure you get rid of that. If there's anything in there left over, you want to do that before you start the whole process. And so essentially what you're going to do is you are going to raise their head a little bit into a slight inclination and gently press, like, press on their stomach. At the same time, you're running water from behind them, right? So if anything comes out, the water will take it and it will drain. Okay? We're good with that? Type. Now, if something does come out and it took it out, then we have to properly remove whatever's remaining from the body. Because it came out, there's always going to be traces on, like, in the back area of the human being and so forth. So what you're going to do is you're going to wash that, wipe that with a rag, right, or a piece of cloth, right, and a specific cloth that you use. So you usually tend to have at least 2 cloths with you, one for the najasa and one for the washing. The other thing is, when we're doing this process, obviously, when you're wiping the person from the filth, you want to make sure you do that with a rag because it's haram for our hand to directly touch the awra of the deceased. This is all being done while making sure that the body is concealed. So you're holding whatever you're holding to make sure it's not there, and then you're wiping, right, and the water is flowing to make sure everything is cleaned. Okay. Once this is done, right, then we're gonna start by so when you wipe down, like, to make sure there's no najasa, make sure everything's done, right? Now, when it comes to the rest of the body, it is actually disliked to directly touch the body skin to skin. In fact, actually over here, health-wise, you have to wear either gloves or have some sort of a rag with you, right? So it is recommended. So Islamically speaking, even before all these regulations, Islamically it is recommended when you directly touch the body, you're touching it indirectly through a cloth or some sort of a rag as you are washing the body. All right. I think we're not going to have time for Janazah prayer. We're going to only do the washing today, I think. Now, after this is done, so you wash to make sure that there's no najasa on the body, this is now you're ready actually to start the washing ritual. And it looks very similar to when you perform a ghusl, right? Did everybody here study the fiqh of ghusl, for example? Yes or no? Hold on, so we can skip the washing now. So it's a bit different, I'll be honest. One of the differences is the intention, right? So the intention when you usually perform ghusl is to elevate the state of major impurity, for example. But you cannot have that intention for the deceased, because death is a state of major impurity that continues. So you're not lifting the state of impurity. Your intention is to perform the ghusl for the deceased. That's your intention, okay? And then you say Bismillah. Right, similar how you perform your ghusl, you say Bismillah. And some schools of thought saying Bismillah is mandatory, by the way. Right, so don't forget that. Just make sure you say it. So you intend to, you make the intention to wash the deceased. The ghusl is for the deceased. It's a ritual act, and so it requires an intention. And then you say Bismillah, right? And it's recommended to start off by making wudu for the deceased. And you only need to do that once in the beginning, right? Because as we go through this, it's recommended to at least wash the entire body 3 times. You don't do wudu on every wash. It's only when you first start is you make wudu for the person, the deceased. Making wudu, which means it's similar how once again you do your own ghusl. The sunnah is to make wudu and then wash all of your body. Correct? Yes? Excellent. Same thing for the deceased. You make intention, you say Bismillah, and then you start making wudu for the deceased. But we have to be careful. We don't rinse their mouth or their nostrils, because the last thing we want is fluid to enter their cavities. We don't want that, okay? So what do we do instead? What we do with the mouth and the nostrils instead is that you wet a towel or a rag, and then you use that to wipe the internal parts of the nostrils. That's it, okay? And then also another one, separate one perhaps, from the inside of the inside of the mouth. Don't open the jaws, just from between the lips and the inside of the top, the outer part of the teeth. That's how you do this, right? And so you say Bismillah and you perform that. That's the mouth. And then you wash the face. But as you're washing the face, make sure you are covering the mouth and the nostrils from water coming into it. If it's on an inclination and you're starting from top to bottom, it shouldn't be a problem. The only issue is if the mouth is open, right? So you have to make sure it is closed. And so you wash the face. And then you move to the hand. You wash from the hand from here to the elbows 3 times, 3 times. And then you wipe the hair, and then you wash the feet. Right? Yes. Can we wait for the Q&A? Just remember the question. Okay? طيب. Wipe your head with the ears. I forgot the ears part. طيب. Now, after that, then we start by washing the head. Okay. Now, the sunnah is to wash the head with what's called sidr. Right. Sidr is a plant. It's a Ziziphus lotus, if I remember correctly. It's Ziziphus lotus, and what it is it creates some sort of a foamy substance in water. Right. What's wrong, Sheikh? You're good. طيب. But it's called sidr, right? Essentially, it is sidr, right? You put it in the water, you foam it, and you take that foam and you put it in the hair, right? For male and female, and in the beard of the males, right? So you use the foamy part. You're not using the entire liquid, you're using the foamy part for that. Usually those leaves are kind of grounded and it kind of creates that foamy substance, okay? So then, once that's done, you wash the head first. And then after you wash the head, you wash the right side of the body, and then the left side of the body, right? That is the complete, the complete ghusl. So you will do that, and then you pour the entire body on the water on the entire body. While you're doing it, the sunnah is to rub the body as you're doing this. So that is the first ghusl. It is recommended to do more than one ghusl. Right? It is recommended to do one ghusl. It is recommended at least to do it 3 times. Okay. Once again, wudu is done when? The first one only, right? Unless najasa comes out while you're washing. If a najasa comes out while you're washing, you perform the wudu again. Once again, 3 times is sufficient as long as no najasa comes out. If najasa comes out after the 3rd one, you continue a 4th wash. And the sunnah is to stop at an odd number. Right, so 3, 5, 7. Maximum number of washes is 7. If najasa comes out afterwards, we need to kind of wash that najasa off, and all you need to do is make wudu, and we have to find some sort of way to stop that najasa from coming out. Right? And they talk about certain ways of doing it. Usually it doesn't happen. That's something very rare. And so we can address that later on of whatever is available in there to kind of make sure no najasa comes out. Once again, because when you shroud the deceased, you don't want anything to soil that shroud. طيب. So somebody asked about soap water, right? It is actually not recommended to use soap water, right? It is not recommended to use hot water either, unless there's a need. So soap and hot water is not recommended unless there's a need. For example, if there's something on there that's not going to come out except with soap, then it's fine to use soap. Otherwise, it's not recommended. Now, for females, it's recommended to braid the hair of the deceased into 3 braids and then put them at the back of the head of the female. Usually when we discuss the washing also, what also can be washed are aborted fetuses, like fetuses that happen to miscarriage, right? There's a miscarriage and there's a fetus that came out. As long as they are 4 months or older, then they actually have the rights to be washed, shrouded, and prayed upon, because the soul has entered the body, okay? So 4 months and above, we're talking about pregnancy over here, right? So this is a miscarriage that happened, and a child was there for 4 months from inception, which means the soul has been placed in there. Then they have to be washed, shrouded, buried, and prayed upon. Okay. Now, there are situations where the deceased, for example, that you might have problems being able to wash the deceased or wash a part of the body of the deceased. For example, burnt victims. Right? If you ever have a victim that might have been in a crash accident, that they're burnt, whatever the case is, then it's very difficult to wash that body. Right? The body will kind of, essentially, things will fall apart. So what do you do in this case? You perform tayammum. You perform tayammum on them. Okay? Do you guys know what tayammum is? Dry wudu. It is when you use dust instead of water. So essentially, all you have to do is use dust, kind of like on the wash, just wipe the face, and then wipe the hands, and that is it. And then you shroud them. Okay? Now, what if you can only wash part of the body and another part that you cannot wash? You wash what you're supposed to wash, and you do tayammum for the parts that you cannot wash. All right, so this is kind of, but this rarely happens on Alam. طيب. Now, as you wash the body, most of the times you might encounter things that are negative in the washing process. Like, for example, a look or a deficiency in the body, or whatever the case is. It is impermissible, right? It is impermissible to share that with anybody else. We cannot do that. Whether even you saw a bad sign, right? So some people would consider, like, a good sign that the face, his body was smiling, or that there's a brightness on their face or body, or a scent of beautiful scent coming out of their body. Those are good things. You don't have to share them. You're allowed to share them. But when it comes to the negative things, you're not allowed to share them. It is haram to share them, right? You need to conceal that, wallahu alam. Because this is something that is negative, and you're entrusted to make sure that nothing is revealed regarding the deceased. طيب, I'm going to stop here. If you guys have any questions, I'll take them right now. Yes? So that is true, but remember, the mandatory part is to wash everything. So what about the part that didn't get washed? It's not pure. So the tayammum, but you don't do tayammum on it. You do tayammum the way it's recommended to do. Because it's the same thing, for example, a person who is in a state of major impurity, their fard is to wash everything. But it suffices, if they don't have water or they're sick, they can't get to it, is to make tayammum on the face and the hand. But what about the rest of the body? This takes the ruling for the rest of the body. We don't do tayammum on the entire body, right? The evidence for that is one of the companions, radiallahu anhu, when he was traveling, two of the companions, they were traveling, in the desert, they ran out of water, right? And whatever they had, it was for their survival. And so they were both in a state of janaba, and they needed to make ghusl, and they couldn't make ghusl. So one of them, he just wiped with the earth face and their hand. The other one just wiped the entire body with the soil, right? Because he thinks water, then everything also has to be with the dust. The Prophet ﷺ told him it was sufficient for you just to strike, wipe your face and your hand. So this is why we're saying, if there's a part, for example, in the arm over here that you cannot wash, you don't put dust on there and do that. No, you do the proper ritual, and it suffices and takes the place of that. Does that answer your question? Yes, Asha.
Sometimes bodies are coming from hospitals where the person who's deceased may have been very sick, and major surgery was performed.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they've been sold, I guess, and then it comes to an end that there's obviously blood. So if you're putting pouring water, is there any differences as to how that should be performed, or?
So once again, if there's the person washing it will be the best judge of that, right? Usually, blood will become very, it actually eventually dries in there, right? And so even if there's an injury, right, if it's sewed properly, and then you're washing, it tends not to affect it. But in the theory that it's going to affect it one way or another, and it's going to cause problems, water's going to go into the cavity, whatever the case is, then you don't do that part. Now remember, we said you do whatever you can. If it's going to harm, if for some reason you cannot wash the body, for whatever reason, right? Even a situation, for example, it's a plague, right? And you for your own health, you should not be touching that body with water, for example. What do? Tayammum, shout it, and that's it, done. Does that answer your question? طيب. I have a question here, and I know I have a question there, right? Yes. Actually, can I take her question first? Because she was waiting for a while. Go ahead. Nail polish and false nails. So nail polish and false nails, those have to be removed. Because anything that prevents, so the same rulings that are associated with ghusl while you're alive also associate when you're deceased. And so part of the ghusl for it to be complete is that the water has to reach every part of the body. So anything that would prevent water from reaching it, it has to be removed. Okay? So if a female comes in with fake nails, right? Those have to be removed. If there's nail polish, it has to be removed. Yes. So if it's going to cause bleeding, right, خلاص, you do the best that you can, but then you might want to do tayammum for that part. Hold on. But generally speaking, there should be products that kind of would help with that. Wallahu alam. I'm not an expert with those female products because I don't use them, right? But sisters that use them, they might know there's certain products that would help because I know they kind of, theoretically speaking, they need to stick those nails with something that is usually a very strong glue. So if they themselves try to remove it, it hurts. And so there's products that help remove it. And so maybe perhaps we should make sure that it's there, they're available in the washing facility. Yes. Say that again? Yes. So you cut off what? The ring? So rings, so how do you cut off the ring? Okay, then you can cut it off. Alternatively, you can simply just rotate it to allow the water to come in. خلاص, then if you need to remove it, then remove it. Right? If you need to remove it, then remove it. Your question. What kind of soil? That's a good question. The Sheikh over here gave a fatwa. He said use the wall. Don't use the wall. Don't use it. Because we would have a problem if there's dust on that wall, ya Sheikh. Clean facility, ya Sheikh. No. When you talk about dust, it actually means dust that you can actually blow off, right? So if there is enough dust on the wall, yes, you can use, but I'll be terrified if we have that much dust on the wall, right? I'll be worried about my health, right? But in this case, ideally, we should have not sand, but actual, maybe perhaps a container of some sort of soil that has dust that we can use, right? Dry, of course, it cannot be moistened. So, Sheikh Afzal, we might want to think about that, Sheikh. No. I'll talk to you later about it. I'm not done yet. I was saying we might have to think about, just in case there's bodies in there that we can't wash for some reason. So we should need to do tayammum for them and then shroud them. And so we should have some sort of a container that has some sort of a soil or dust.
Water or dust,
Yeah, tayammum has to be dust.
Yeah,
So, but we need to have some sort of a container in there that has some sort of dust that we can use.
Dust, yeah. That's
Okay.
what we were doing in COVID time.
Yeah. So example, right? So beginning of COVID, this is they didn't wash the bodies, right? And so they had to use tayammum for it. But we should have, inshallah, something in there, container, inshallah. Yes. Before they do it, no, right? No, I understand. So it is not mandatory for the person who does the wudu is to be in a state of tahara. But some schools of thought, like the Hanbali school of thought, they say making ghusl nullifies your wudu, which means that you should not be praying until you make wudu before you pray. It is even recommended for you to perform ghusl, right? So if I remember correctly, across the board, if you are the person performing ghusl, it is recommended for you to, after you're done, is to perform ghusl. The Hanbali school of thought tells you that washing a body, also performing ghusl, so you're the one that's handling the body, the pouring the water, and so forth. It breaks your wudu. You need to make wudu before you pray. Okay. Yes. I cannot hear you. No, she can wash the body. So washing the body, it's not a prerequisite to be in a state of tahara. It's not a prerequisite. So the person washing, the sister doing the washing, does not have to be in a state of tahara. Okay? Yes. Need to know, recommended, yes. So the recommended thing before you start is saying Bismillah wa ala wafati Rasulillah, right? Say Bismillah, and based on the the procedures of the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So essentially, you're doing like how it was performed upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the recommended statement essentially. Other than the fact that before you start the ghusl of the Prophet, the ghusl of the deceased, you say Bismillah. You have to make an intention and say Bismillah. Other than that, there is no form of recommended dhikr that's being done. Okay, any more questions? Yes. So it depends what are you talking about. What I gave you right now is the complete form agreed upon. So that includes the mandatory, the recommended, all these things. That's the complete form that is agreed upon. What suffices, what is sufficient, is just making the intention, saying Bismillah, and making sure the entire body is washed with water once. That is enough. Okay? It is disliked to do only once. It's recommended 3 times. Okay? Yes? So I didn't have a chance to go to the shrouding part. I'm missing the shrouding over here. Unfortunately, process. But I'm going to summarize it. It should take more than 5 minutes. But essentially, the shrouding process, right? For males, it's recommended 3 garments. So essentially, you cut 3 pieces. You put them, all of them on top of each other. You put the body on top. And then you go from the left side to the right, and then right to the left. So you're encasing them in it, right? And then the second layer, the same thing, goes from one side to one side, and then the last one from one side to the other side, and then you tie the head and you wrap the feet. That tying of the head, it's loosened when you put them in the grave. Okay, that is for men. For females, what's recommended is 5 articles. So men 3, females 5 articles. Recommended 5 articles. I don't think we do that here, but the recommendation is, so this is based on the Hanbali school of thought. So the 5 articles are a khimar, which is the covering of the head, a qamis, which is the shirt you wear long sleeve, and then izar, which is lower garment, and then 2 wraps, okay, that you wrap them in. Do we do that here, Sheikh Afzal? We do that, right? Okay, so that's what we do here, right? Because I wasn't quite sure. Now, once again, what is sufficient? What is enough for shrouding? What is enough is 1 large piece of cloth that wraps completely the deceased, that doesn't show their skin tone or transparent, that covers from head to toe. That is sufficient, right? But what is recommended for males, 3, like when you shroud them in 3 pieces of cloth. For sisters, it's 5, okay? Of course, they go into a different opinion regarding the children. So a male child, it is 1 cloth, permissible 3. For a female child, it is a qamis, and then it's wrapped in 2 shrouds, right? That is the recommendation, for example. Hanafi opinion is a bit different, right? The three articles of clothing is not the 3 wraps. It is actually a qamis, a izar, and a imama. You wrap the entire thing with that's kind of the Hanafi school of thought. But I don't think anybody follows that here. Right, hold on. Yes. Good. Not navel up, navel to knee. Navel to knee. No, it's fine. Yes. Do you want to start setting up? Because I didn't go into the details of the shrouding. So it is recommended in the shrouding process. So that goes back to the whole thing about these things. So usually it is recommended to use some sort of scent, right? Some sort of musk, that and cotton. It's placed underneath the armpits, between the thighs, in the nostrils area, stuff like that. You wipe the forehead with it, and then you shroud the deceased, right? So yes, it is permissible to use fragrances. Usually they also tell you it is recommended to have some sort of a bukhur in the room while you're doing it, because just in case if there's anything that soils, it kind of removes the smell away. But that is kind of difficult to do while doing the washing process. But usually they tell you it's sunnah to scent the deceased body as you wrap it. طيب. All right, I think I am done because Sheikh Afzal needs to take 2 full hours, inshallah, plus setup time and questions. And he will be dealing with the legal aspects of the funeral, starting from the taking the body from the hospital. Is that right, Sheikh? All
Place
the,
of death.
huh?
Place of death.
So place of death. Now it doesn't matter where it is. Place of death, all the way until the burial. All right, خلاص, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. And you have any questions? Yes, Sheikh. Say that again. I just did it quickly right now. I just did it in 5 minutes. Of course, there's more details, but I did what's sufficient, inshallah. Jazakum. Yes. Can you what? It's usually It's usually not recommended. Okay, let me rephrase that. If it's gonna come out, it's not recommended. But if it's very subtle, that's different. Hold on. Yes. طيب. Yeah, so where do we find the QR code? So we have a QR code for like, you can sign up, inshallah. So once again, once part of this is, inshallah, we do need, the more volunteers, the better, because if we have 1 or 2, it puts a lot of strain on them. The more we have, it allows leeway, somebody's not available, whatever the case is. So, they are here, I guess. After I think I can come up and just scan it, inshallah. All right, any more questions? Jazakumullah khair. Do you want to say? Come here, sit.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil mursaleen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, I will discuss the legal aspects of the funeral, which is the most difficult part doing a funeral in this country. I'm a state certified licensed funeral director. My license number is there, 5193. I'm not allowed to discuss anything about the funerals without mentioning my license number. It's a state requirement. So my license number is there. And I will discuss only the legal aspects of the funeral. Dr. Ahmed is here. Any religious part of the funeral you can discuss, you know, Brother Ahmed will answer for that. So funerals have 2 parts. Funerals have 2 parts. One is the legal part of the funeral and religious part of the funeral. By the way, I have cut the slides to finish everything with question and answers in 2 hours, inshallah. Used to be 4-hour slide, when lot of details, but I have cut a lot now because 4 hours is like too difficult for attendees to stay. Funerals have legal and religious. Legal part, it starts with the physician certification. Physician certification, and the physician have 24 hours to certify the death. 24 hours legally to certify the death. The pronouncement can be done by anybody, registered nurse or doctor, nurse practitioner, so on. But most of the time, there's another physician who will certify the death later on. So legal aspect starts with the physician certification. Then I need to get the burial permit from the state registrar. If we don't have burial permit, we cannot do the funeral. We cannot. So if the doctor is certifying in 24 hours, legally they have That means funeral cannot happen at least 1.5 days. The system in this country is made that the funeral, when somebody dies, the funeral gonna be 1 week later. The funeral will be 1 week later. That's why you see for non-Muslim funerals, the death occurs, body will be picked up tomorrow, because we do funerals. My other funeral director does the funeral for non-Muslims. So if somebody dies now, maybe tomorrow night or day after tomorrow, they will pick the body. Then the family will come in 3-4 days later to sit down and make the funeral arrangement, and so on, and the body get embalmed, and then it's a whole event for them. And then the funeral will happen maybe a week or 2 weeks later. But for us Muslim, if the death occurs now, the family gonna ask me, can we bury at 11 p.m.? The family gonna ask me can we bury at 11 p.m. or maybe early morning, right? It is possible, as long as the family follow the directions, so we can expedite the things, right? So I have to get the burial permit from the state registrar to do the funeral. I have to get the transit permit. Health department clearance from the health department. State registrar is involved for death certificate. Township registrar is involved, depending upon the situation. Medical examiner, investigator may be involved, depending upon the case. Depending upon the case, is the medical examiner involved or not, police is involved, and so on. So I'm giving you some information. Later on, I'm going to ask you some questions. After we finish these slides, you should be able to answer all those questions. I think you can already will figure out some of the answers right now. What is the religious part of the funeral? Brother Ahmed, Dr. Ahmed just discussed the ghusl, right? The deceased need to be washed, ghusl done properly, religiously, right? Prayer, Salatul Janazah, and then dua, so on, right? If we have the deceased, if someone passes now, and I bring the body, even if the doctor have not certified, nothing permits, nothing is done, but the hospital, let's say, have released the body or where the death occurred, we have at the funeral home, then we can do all the religious part. Ghusl can be done, Salatul Janazah can be done, dua, all of them can be done, but we cannot do the funeral. We cannot go to the cemetery yet. Once we get all these completed, then we're gonna move forward. So most of the time, the family asks me, you have the deceased already here, you already have the deceased here, why are you not doing the funeral? And I have to explain them, and sometimes they roll their sleeves on me. You know what I mean? Right? They don't understand, we don't have this permit, then they say, no, we don't do, we are Muslim, we do this way, we do it back home like this. No, you are here. All legal requirements have to be completed before we do the funeral, right? So funerals have legal and religious part, and I have cut some of the list from here. Custody of the deceased. The custody of the deceased, who gets the custody? Funeral director or funeral home get the legal custody of the deceased, and the family gets the constructive custody. What legal custody means, if the death occurred at home or at hospital, or bodies at the medical examiner, they are transferring the legal custody of the deceased from them to the funeral director. Now, funeral director is legally stuck now. Funeral director is legally stuck now unless the body is properly disposed of or buried in the cemetery. So from hospital, legal custody get transferred to the funeral director, and then the funeral director, when we arrive at the cemetery, we're transferring that legal custody from us to the cemetery now. So we enter the cemetery boundary, our legal part is done. Anything happens, once we enter in the cemetery boundary, we are done. We don't have to worry about it. But of course, with Muslim funerals, we all stay together and everything. But legally, we are not responsible after that. So funeral director gets the legal custody and family gets the constructive custody as long as the family wishes are legal. Family wishes are legal. For example, If the family says, we want to do the funeral after Zohar prayer, if I get all the permits, of course that we can do it. The family says, well, only few family members will wash the body. Okay, that's fine. If the family says, we want such and such sheikh to do Salatul Janazah, that's fine, and so on. But if the family says, and it happened multiple times, brother, why you have to worry? We are Muslim about permits and all of that. Let's go cemetery and do it. Right? Even one of the family asked me, oh, you don't have to worry, I'll bring the body myself from the hospital. I said, how are you going to bring it? Not going to be able to sit, right? Oh, I'm bringing it in my car. Okay, go ahead, bring it. If it didn't happen, right? Hospital not going to give the body to the family like that without proper documentation. As long as the family wishes are legal, we follow that, inshallah. Okay, and we are required to follow the family wishes because they have constructive custody. Funeral process. Place of death, right? The place of death can be hospital, home, nursing home, rehab center, accident, medical, all different situations. When I used to do 4-hour workshop, I used to go with each of the cases too. Okay, death occurred at hospital, what that means. If death occurred at home, under hospice care, no hospice care, all of that, what that means. If the death occurred at rehab center, at nursing home, what all that means. So I just cut all of that because when the death occurred, the family call us and we hold their hand and we walk through all the steps one by one. Okay? Because the family don't remember all of that information. We have to teach them anyway at that time. Let's do these steps to follow. Okay? So place of death can be home, hospital, nursing home, rehab center, so on. The body will be transferred from, or it can be, if the death occurred at home or hospital or nursing home, depending upon the case, the body may be transferred or may be taken by the medical examiner office. The medical examiner office for Somerset is a state one in Newark. And they are very brutal. They are the tough one. For Middlesex County, Mercer County is in North Brunswick. Little easier. I know a majority of people over there. So the body, it depends if the body is going to go to the medical examiner or won't go to the medical examiner, right? I'm going to give you, for example, if somebody dies at home and is under hospice care. Everybody knows what hospice care means, right? End of life care. It's under a doctor care, under a nurse, and so on. Then medical examiner won't be contacted even. The medical examiner won't be contacted even, right? So the body will be given to the funeral home. But if that person died at home due to some situation, I'm not going to go into those details, maybe fell or other foul plays, suspected or whatever, it will go to the medical examiner. If somebody dies at the hospital and dies within 24 hours of admittance, it's a medical examiner case. Because none of the doctor will take responsibility to certify the death. Maybe Brother Azhar may. Right? The doctor won't. You came to emergency and you died within 24 hours. Even all the doctors are seeing you and so on. But within 24 hours, the doctor don't take responsibility to sign it. So it becomes a medical examiner case and the body goes from hospital to the medical examiner. And then they do what they do, right? External autopsy and all of that, depending upon the situation, upon the age of the deceased, and so on. Not going in that details. So, nursing home also, sometimes medical examiner, sometimes no needed to go to the medical examiner. All different cases, okay? So, what's happening? Frozen? Okay. So, if the body goes to the medical examiner or if it is released directly from the hospital or home, then the body will be transferred from there to the washing facility or funeral home. Alhamdulillah, Falah Center has a washing room here too now. This is washing room, it is not a funeral home. ISCJ have washing room, not a funeral home. MCMC have it, and MCGP have it, and few other masajids, Al-Wali have it. They are washing facility for the spiritual preparation of the body. A spiritual preparation of the body, what Brother Ahmed just explained you guys. Ghusl, shrouding, and so on, right? So depending upon the case, the body will go either to the washing facility or to the funeral home. My funeral home is in Princeton, New Jersey. Princeton, New Jersey, right? We have an understanding with all the mosques which have the washing facility. If the deceased is fully autopsied, the body won't come here directly. It has to go to the funeral home. It had to do some resuturing, because when the medical examiner, they do test whatever the autopsy is done, they do not close the body properly. So all the organs and all of that are visible. So we have to put it back, everything, okay? If the body is tagged with communicable diseases, we don't want to risk the community. The body won't come here directly. Some kind of disinfection will be done, and then the body will come here, washing facility, to complete the rest of ghusl and shrouding and so on. So this is understanding with all of the masajids who have washing facility. So, and I just named it burial preparation room or burial preparation facility and so on. Once that is done, the next step is, so let's take an example of Falah Center. Body comes here, and 95% majority of time body will come directly here. So certain cases we cannot bring here directly, what I just mentioned to you, right? And then washing is done, and it's going to be moved here depending upon which mosque. This is a generic slide, not just limited to Falah Center or any mosque. The body will be moved from the washing facility to the mosque itself area. So it may go to NBIC, ISCJ, Falah Center, so on, and you know what will be done at this facility, right? At the mosque, Salatul Janazah and Dua, and then we proceed to where we go from here? We go cemetery, right? From here, we proceed to the cemetery. Cemetery of your choice. Cemetery of your choice. All of this arrangement, as per New Jersey Mortuary Board requirement, must be done by a licensed funeral director. Must be by a licensed funeral director. Now, it took me 4 years of college to study everything, and 2-year internship in a funeral home, practicing on 75 bodies, embalming, cutting, all kind of things. A state board exam, then national board exam, and then the inspector comes from the state of New Jersey. He stands on your shoulder, the body is there, and he say, okay, embalm the body in front of me. So we have, it's a very brutal process, long process. One time I was going to quit all of this, but alhamdulillah continued. My wife supported, so we continued. So this medical examiner, washing facility, mosque, cemetery, and all is to be done by a licensed funeral director. In funeral process, there is a term called arrangement conference, which is required by Federal Trade Commission and New Jersey Mortuary Board. So what that means is, if the death occurs in the family, whenever the death occurs in the family, one of the family member should, a legal next of kin or their delegate. Legal next of kin or their delegate. For example, if the wife passes away, husband is the legal next of kin. That means the funeral director must sit with the husband and complete all the paperwork, and vice versa. And children, there's a different state priority who is defined as legal next of kin for funeral purpose, right? So if, and it is, most of the time it is the case that, of course, there is a death in the family, so husband or wife, they can't sit with the funeral director. They can assign a delegate. Okay, my friend such and such will come and sit with you and complete all the arrangements, right? So there is a form that husband whose legal next of kin will complete called renunciation of rights, which I will show you the form, assigning, delegating such and such person to make funeral arrangement on their behalf. Okay, on their behalf. But it is important, if you are delegating someone, let's say the death occurs now, someone, right? And they say, okay, Brother Afzal, XYZ is coming to make all the funeral arrangements with you, right? I sit with them, 2-hour arrangement conference, everything is done, funeral is confirmed for tomorrow, we are working, getting permits, all of that. You assign a delegate to make all arrangements. The funeral is happening tomorrow at Zohar time. All of a sudden, the legal next of kin will come tomorrow at 11 a.m. and say, why are you doing the funeral at Zohar? I want to do it Asr prayer. You are the one who delegated someone, who made the arrangement. You need to follow that then. Right? You know, and this happens many times. Many times. Okay? So this arrangement conference is almost 2 hours of arrangement conference. Now for Falah Center and the masajids which I serve, which are far away, if there is a need for funeral arrangement, I can do the funeral arrangement on the phone also, maybe a video call, as long as the case is not a medical examiner case. If this is a medical examiner case and you want no autopsy done, right, then you need to come to my office so we can prepare the paperwork, notarize the documents, and I can fax it to the medical examiner. That has to be notarized. And I'm going to show you those documents shortly, inshallah. So what is discussed in this, so who should attend this funeral? Legal next of kin or their delegate. A renunciation of right form is to be completed, which I will show you later. What is discussed in this arrangement conference? What is discussed in this? The funeral doesn't have to be chaotic. Especially when we have to fill all those paperwork, we have to get the permits, we have to do, and the funeral is happening within 24 hours, sometimes in 4 hours, and all of that, right? So I tell my other funeral director, Ron, because when he gets the phone call, he's very relaxed. He said, okay, we'll see. We'll get tomorrow, family will come 3-4 days later, we'll sit down and do. By that time, the doctor certification is done, permits are applied, and all of that. For me, if the calls now, the whole night the phone will be ringing. From one family member and then another family member will call, where we stand now? The third will call at 12 o'clock. Oh, Brother Afzal, where we stand now? Oh, you know what I mean? Right? So this arrangement conference is very important. So thing can be sorted out, and we follow the schedule and we do the funeral. So what is discussed in this funeral? All forms to be completed / signed. Okay? All forms to be signed. What forms to be completed, I'll explain you in a minute. Release authorization form usually completed before meeting. Okay? Before we meet, someone calls me now, the death occurred, the first thing I'm going to do is, and my phone is on all the time, except from 9:30 p.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning. 9:30 p.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning, all calls goes to answering service. You still call the same number you have, but it will be answered by the answering service. And if you tell them, yes, you are calling to report a death and want to make funeral arrangement, they will take you some basic information from you. They will take your name, your telephone number, your email address, deceased name, and your relationship with the deceased. And they put you on hold and then connect to my assistant, Fatma. Fatma will start sending you these forms and so on. So 9:30 p.m. to 9 a.m., my time is to try to take rest. Okay? But still, everything goes on, answering service. So please cooperate with the answering service. Do not hang up. No. I want to talk to Brother Afzal. If you want to talk to Brother Afzal and you want the funeral tomorrow at Zohar prayer, and Brother Afzal did not sleep whole night, how that going to happen? Right? So cooperate with them. Many times it happens. especially some of the imams at different massages, they just, no, Brother Afzal, hang up. They keep on hanging 6, 7 times. Nothing gonna happen. Nothing, they're not gonna wake me up. Simple, they have instructions. We're giving you a live service, live answering service, and then the live assistant, who's gonna send all this paperwork with you, gonna start working with the hospital, with the medical examiner, with the investigator, will get the permits, apply for the permits, all of that. So when I wake up in the morning, I take from there onward, right? So release authorization form is to be completed. Let me see if I have release authorization form here. Oh, session ended. Okay, I'll show you in a minute. Department of Health form, New Jersey or whichever Department of Health form has to be completed. The Department of Health form, they ask you a lot of information. And the family, brother, why you need social security number? I'm just gonna give you last 4 digit. Okay, give me last 4 digit. When the death certificate comes, it's gonna have last 4 digits of the social security number. And when you take the death certificate to the bank or wherever, real estate, whatever, they're gonna say it's not the same person. Person passed away, give the full social security number. They need to know father name, mother maiden name, occupation, education, all kind of things the state wants, the health department wants. So I'm gonna show you shortly. Health department form to be completed. A state county medical examiner release authorization form to be, they have a separate release authorization form. They have much more legal language there, from especially the one from a state medical examiner in Newark. They had a lot of legal language there to cover themselves. Has to be notarized and sent to them. They don't take it without notarization, right? For that, everything done at my office, right? Objection to autopsy. If this is a medical examiner case, you can request that you do not want autopsy done on the deceased based on your religious belief. And I have seen it 99.9% time they waive it. I mean, who wants to get involved, right? The medical examiner is happy, actually. He's happy, you know. They say, oh, thanks God, we don't have to do autopsy now. We spend 1 hour doing all of this, right? Family requesting no autopsy. But they have the jurisdiction to say yes or no, right? If it is a young person and died all of a sudden at home or accident, right, they're not gonna waive it, right? Sometimes they waive it. For example, in some accident cases, they waive it. Then later on, the family regrets. Because when they go for the life insurance company says, we don't know why he passed away. At home, what happened? You did not do you objected to autopsy. We do not know exact cause of death. Did he kill himself or somebody killed? Whatever, right? And you objected to autopsy, now there is no life insurance. So there are many factors to consider, right? Again, a lot of things looks, again, from Muslim perspective, we will say, well, we don't do all of this. So you're living here, you have to follow all these things, right? Okay, objection to autopsy, consent of services, legal next of kin, or delegate will sign the consent of services authorizing Muslim funeral services to the burial of your loved one according to Muslim practices. And at the back are the state law, the whole legal page. State laws are written, you initial and sign all of them to say, yes, I am the legal next of kin, I am the wife, I am the spouse, I am the son, I am the whatever. All this there, okay? Ritual preparations waiver form. When we do ghusl, there is a form, those family members who are coming to wash the body need to sign the ritual preparation waiver for funeral home and for the Islamic Center. Okay? Waiver form, meaning if you come across with the deceased and you get sick or you start having dreams or so on, we are not responsible for that. Okay? According to the mortuary board regulation, only a licensed funeral director should go next to the body. Men or women. But we are giving, okay, the family coming, washing the deceased lady, man, and so on. Okay, do it, I'm gonna sign this paper now, right? I have been threatened, so later on we changed all our processes, okay? I thought a Muslim, okay, nothing gonna happen, but it happens. Viewing waiver. There's a viewing waiver sign, may not be needed, but if the family insists that they want to see the body face after ghusl or before ghusl and so on, and if the funeral director determines that the body is not in a viewable condition, then you need to sign that first. We're gonna tell you that it's not in a good shape, your loved one, like burn cases, right? Like burn cases or accident cases and so on, then you have to sign that waiver if you insist on viewing. Medicaid statement of resources for Medicaid eligible cases. Medicaid does pay towards the funeral cost, a good amount. They pay $3,056 towards the funeral home cost, and they pay $714 towards the cemetery cost. But the family cannot spend more than $1,570 out of pocket. So if you pick a cemetery, and the cemetery is $5,000, then on the top of the funeral home cost, the casket and all of that, you're automatically in, even if the deceased is eligible, some reimbursement, you automatically now became uneligible because the cost went very high. Okay? So Medicaid statement of resources, I'll show you the form later. I'm going to show all the forms quickly later. Waiver to understand funeral cost. There is a form that the family need to sign, and majority of time, the family comes or their delegate comes, they say, brother, don't explain the cost. Just tell us what it is. Then don't come to me in 2 weeks later, brother, why the cost is this. It has to be done either at that time or done, not later. So if the family or their delegate came and they say, well, brother, just tell me the total cost, how much cemetery, funeral home cost, how much casket, estate registrar, all of that is $7,000, $6,000, whatever number is that. Just tell us the number and done. Okay. We will follow the general price list, which is approved by the Federal Trade Commission and New Jersey Mortuary Board, and they are very strict on this, all right? We follow that, we prepare the statement, we charge it, done. 2 weeks later, don't come to me, brother, I think the deceased is eligible for Medicaid and we can get some reimbursement. Well, that is already done. You told me not to explain anything. So you are going to lose almost $4,000, which can come from the county. All right? So if the family or legal next of kin or delegate do not want to understand the funeral cost, they sign a paper so we can put in the file when the inspector comes at the end of the year. By the way, at the end of the year, the inspector from the state comes, open the files, and do random check. Do random check whether we followed all the rules and regulations or not, right? So that paper to be signed. Death certificate. Death certificate, once I file the death certificate, before I sign it, before the funeral director signs it, I send to the family and tell them to review it carefully. But unfortunately, 98% of the time, the family in 2 minutes says everything is good. Now I signed it, no more changes can be done. Because once I sign it, then we can apply the permits. The permits I told you in the beginning, right? So you did not check. 2 weeks later, you're going to come to me when the death certificate comes original. Brother, oh, and I don't understand sometimes. The state or the health department is asking, what is the marital status of the deceased? And you gave me divorced, right? I filed the permit, everything came back. All of a sudden, 3 weeks later, none of them was divorced, it was married. Oh, how am I gonna, this? Then amendment has to be filed with the state registrar, and now they need proof for everything. Initially, when you give me any information, I file it, they don't ask for proof, anything. Now, all of a sudden, from divorce to married, it changed. They're going to say, okay, get the death certificate, the marriage certificate. And if there is a fight between, you know what I mean? I just had a situation here. There's a fight between, this was divorce case. All of a sudden, it changed to no. It changed to separated. Now, the husband don't want to give the death certificate, a marriage certificate. And they're fighting. It took 8 months to correct anything. And that, I said, I don't know how this changed all of a sudden. Later, I learned there's a life insurance policy involved. Okay, so the death certificate is very important. Review it carefully. When I give you the draft death certificate, initial, review it carefully. Life insurance policy, if applicable, if family have, I'm not getting into the detail whether life insurance is haram or halal, that is Dr. Ahmed, he will explain, right? If you tell me the person have life insurance, I'm gonna call the life insurance, you give me the information, we file them so they can pay for the service, for the funeral. Haram or halal, that is for a separate topic, right? Okay, cemetery disclaimer. Cemetery disclaimer, which cemetery you want to do the burial, right? Remember I said the funeral process, medical examiner from place of death to this, and the mosque, and then to the cemetery. I'm just following your direction, which cemetery you want to do the burial. I'm just placing an interment order in a cemetery of your choice. If you want to bury in Greenwood Cemetery, Baskin Ridge Cemetery, or Roselle Cemetery, Jersey State Memorial Park, Marlboro Muslim Memorial, whichever cemetery. The whole disclaimer says we are just making arrangement. Any issue with the cemetery on the day of funeral, on the day of burial, or after the burial, you have to work directly with the cemetery. We have nothing. All we are doing is just placing order on your behalf. So if you buried someone in Marlboro Muslim Memorial or Jersey State Memorial Park, which are the worst managed cemetery, Muslim-only cemetery, both are worst managed. Basking Ridge is very good, Greenwood is very good. But when you sit in the arrangement conference, I'm gonna give you the pros and cons of cemeteries, in my experience in 15 years. So since then, I was getting calls all the time. Well, I buried someone in Jersey State Memorial Park, the dirt is, this happened, the grave marker is not there, I cannot find the grave of my loved one, there's all of this, right? I have nothing to do with that. All I'm gonna say, brother or sister, go to their website, they have their contact information, call them and discuss with them directly. I have nothing to do with it. So you will sign cemetery disclaimer also, right? I had a case, I buried a sister, another funeral home, they buried the sister in Marlboro Muslim Memorial Cemetery. The family got so frustrated, they asked me to take her out 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, take her out from there and take it to Greenwood Cemetery. I tried to calm them down, it's already buried like 2 weeks now. But they were so insisting, they said, no, take her out from there. Then I applied the permit, disinterment permit to the township, right? Disinterment permit to the township, took her out from that cemetery 2 weeks later, took back to the funeral home, and the family said, we want to put her in a nice mahogany casket with pillow and comforter and everything. Okay. We put in that. I think family spent maybe $12,000, $13,000 on that. And then this cemetery where we take out the body, they charge $2,000 for disinterment fee. That cemetery charge extra because they want very specialized whatever. Then the funeral home cost, the digger, all of that. So when you sit in the arrangement conference, you sit with me, or whichever funeral home is doing the services, and you discuss the details. So you don't want to go that kind of aggravation later. Clear? The arrangement conference is very important, very important. A lot of families try to avoid this. Brother, why you? We are Muslims. Subhanallah, we're done. No, no, not done. We do it this way, everything, right? So cemetery disclaimer, you will get tentative funeral schedule. A statement of funeral goods and services will be signed, where all the cost for the funeral home and any cash advances we do on your behalf. Any cash advances we do on your behalf. For example, you say, well, brother, can you, funeral home, make the payment to the cemetery, to the estate registrar, the casket company, all of that, and we're just gonna give you one check. So it will have the cost for the funeral home, casket, and any cash advances we are going, so you have one receipt for everything, okay? And the statement of funeral goods and services is the requirement by the state, mortuary board, and Federal Trade Commission. They are big on this, They can revoke our license if we don't give this. Majority of time, family call me and say, brother, can you send me the invoice? I said, no. In funeral services, there is no concept of invoice. There is no concept of invoice. It's a statement of funeral goods and services with all disclosures, with all standard disclosures. Has to be there. Life insurance company need this. The Medicaid, if the disease Medicaid, they need this. They don't need invoice, none of them. Okay? Cost will be discussed with you. If you do not want, then you sign the waiver. Remember I told you earlier? Funeral home general price list, right? This will be shown to you, and I'm going to start showing you soon. Cemetery cost, estate and township registrar cost. For example, do you want how many death certificates you want? Do you want from the state or you want the township? If you want urgently, then we can get from the township the same day or next day. If you want from the state, it will take 2 weeks. So if you're working with the life insurance and all of that, or if you want to send the body abroad, we need the original death certificate. So if that occurred today and we are sending the body day after tomorrow abroad, we need the original death certificate for US Customs, right? And airline. They're not going to take the body without that death certificate. Then we get from the township. The township charge $25 per copy versus state charge $25 for first, additional copy is $2 each. So all of this is discussed there in arrangement conference, right? Okay, let me show you some forms. I'm going to get to that sample funeral schedule. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to show you the forms in one step, okay? Funeral schedule, you will get, when you sit in this arrangement conference, you will get this kind of a schedule. For example, if funeral is happening, let's say at Falah Center, right? So you will get a schedule, let's say ghusl is 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Let's say we are talking, let's say for tomorrow. I'm going to give you the schedule. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. is the ghusl. Depending, the time changes, depending it's a deceased sister, it is more time for sister, it needed more time, okay, to wash the body. Viewing, if family wants viewing or no viewing to be done. Viewing or no viewing to be done. Family decide, right? So if the family wants viewing, how many people are coming for viewing? 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, whatever. There is a time have to be incorporated there, okay? Zuhr prayer, let's say 1:15, Salatul Janazah 1:30, funeral procession to cemetery, and then this is the cemetery time we arrive at the cemetery. And we follow the schedule very strictly. No late for 1 hour, right? If the viewing is set for 11:30 to 12:30 p.m., and if the family, how I go back to the previous one? Oh, backslide. Okay, if the family comes at 12 o'clock to start the viewing, casket getting closed at 12:30, regardless. And you have to decide whether viewing you want or no. I'm not getting into the religious aspect, whether it is halal or haram to do the viewing, and who should do the viewing. Mahram, non-mahram, all kind of things, right? All kind of things. So if the family insists, I cannot say legally to you no. Maybe talk to your sheikh, maybe talk to your imam, whoever imam you trust, ask them, and then they will guide you, right? You are asking me to do the viewing, I'm legally bound to say yes, okay, viewing will happen. But if you ask me, no viewing at all, and when I'm ready to take the casket to the cemetery, all of a sudden 40 people run towards me, say, brother, can you open? I want to see the deceased face. This happened at ISCJ. The family said no viewing at all. I took the casket to the mosque just 15, 20 minutes before the prayer. I'm loading the casket, and everybody, like the whole family, runs towards me. Oh, brother, I didn't see the face. No, there was a time for that. And the family said no viewing, right? Because the reason I'm saying that funeral schedule we follow very strictly, because if this is the funeral, let's say for tomorrow, right? Funeral have no time, right? If I get a call now and I gave this a schedule for tomorrow, what about 2 a.m. in the morning, another call rings, and that family wants to do also tomorrow? I cannot cancel your funeral. Even some of the family insist, can you cancel there and do ours first? All kind of things. I cannot cancel their funeral. Everything is set with the cemetery and all of that, right? Your funeral, I will try my best to do at the same time, but I have to go around this schedule, which is already there. That means I'm going to ask the family to come wash at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. in the morning, okay? All different. The schedule is fixed, right? You will get the funeral schedule, you will get the primary and secondary context, and you will get the pallbearers. Anybody knows what pallbearers are? No? In American funeral, if you see it, those who carry the casket, they're like military person, right? Walking 3 on this side, walking 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3. So most of the time, the family wishes that when we are at the cemetery, they want their immediate family members to lower the casket in the grave. Because the funeral is very emotional, very emotional. When I am at the cemetery, if I leave it open-ended, everybody will touch the casket and want to lower it, and the casket fell one time. And since then, I asked the family, you have any preference? Who you want to lower the casket, or I can pick any from the crowd. And 99.9% of the time now, family gives me the names. They say, okay, no, only these 6 names. Okay, so you get the funeral schedule. Let me show you some forms here first, and then we go for frequently asked questions. Okay. I downloaded the forms. I guess I know which form is this. Release authorization form, let's say. Okay, hold on. Which one is this? Okay. Okay, this is release authorization form, and this is all online form. Oh, it's not coming here? Why? Okay, so do I need to do this PowerPoint? Pause that first, I guess? Yeah.
Okay, so this is your screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the
So
screen.
this is the one I want to show.
Why is it not coming up? All right.
It's, again, that is coming.
Yeah, I know. So you want to...
The email I just opened, the form in email.
No, but I want to essentially stop the slide.
Yeah, close it, and I'll open later.
No.
It escape?
I don't know. Why? So this is PowerPoint, right? No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not PowerPoint.
This is PowerPoint. So you can close it completely,
No,
so
but
it
you're
doesn't
supposed
come
to-
up.
You're supposed to be able to... Why is it different than... I'm not used to this.
It is PowerPoint. I just want to project my, yeah, I think close PowerPoint, shut it, close it.
Yeah, it is stuck on presentation mode, right?
So you have to drag this out. You have to drag that window.
So it's okay.
Yeah, we can close this and I'll open this again.
So you have the extended, right? That's what it is. Okay, yes. So this is the extended, right? But I don't want that. So I'm going to end slideshow. Okay.
close this too. This is slideshow.
This is not the right one?
This is the slideshow too.
Okay, I know, but I want the, is it on here?
Go to my email,
This one?
click this. Okay, this is coming now. Okay. Release authorization. As I said, this release authorization form starts whenever the death call comes, right? You can imagine, you think the medical examiner will release the body without authorization from the family or legal next of kin? You think the hospital will release it? You need the nursing home will release it? Or nurse who comes to the home release it? No, right? So you need to fill this release authorization form, and this release authorization form, basically, and this, majority of time, families don't put it properly, all the information here, even though it says here, when you go there, it tells you what information is needed here. So it says, I enter full name, relationship with the deceased, residing at such and such place, authorizes Muslim funeral services of such and such address to transfer the remains of deceased from date of birth of the deceased, from where, the address, the phone number, and so on, then you sign the form. Now, it is very important that this form is to be signed by the person. If it is hospital, it's to be signed by the person who admitted the deceased to the hospital. Robert Wood Johnson Hospital, St. Peter's Hospital do not release the body until they match it. Okay? Until they match it, who brought the person to the hospital. Okay? So release authorization, let me see if I have the other form now. Which one is this? Let me see if it is not expired. Okay. Comes in a minute. And again, you can fill this form, the release authorization, on your phone. Remember, you want the funeral to happen very quickly, right? I get the cases where the family sent death occurred. I sent the form for 4 hours, nobody respond anything. And then all of a sudden, brother, tomorrow is the funeral at such and such time, right? Confirmed? You did not even complete the release form. I cannot call the hospital without this release form there. This is New Jersey Department of Health form. They need a lot of information, deceased name, also known as aliases, very important. If the deceased legal name goes in the first part, and also known as, if this person from Pakistan, India, Egypt, and have a very little bit different name even in the spelling, give that too. So this death certificate can be recognized back abroad also. I have a family who put in Ahmed, instead of E, they put A. In US, his name is with A, Ahmed. In Egypt, it's with E, Ahmed. He's fighting for last 2 years to tell the authorities the same person. So if you give me aliases, I'm going to put both the names. So in this way, you don't get into issue. They ask you the date of birth, the age, birthplace, address. And address is the municipality. So if this person passes in Edison, which municipality you pay the taxes to. That the information goes there, not the town itself. So all of this information is needed. They ask you marital status. They ask you the surviving spouse name. If it is husband passed away, then you need the sister maiden name before marriage. Same with father name, mother's name. They ask you for the cemetery. They ask you the race. They ask you the origin, education. All of this education is needed. They ask you about the occupation and so on, how many death certificates you want, all of this information. Okay, so this is the, let me go with the other form, see if I have renunciation of rights where you delegate someone. This is renunciation of rights form. Can this be made bigger or no? Oh, here. Too big. Renunciation of rights, if you're delegating somebody else to do the funeral on your, or make the arrangement on your behalf. Okay, you fill all this form, I send online, you complete it, you commit, then I don't need the legal next of kin to come and sign the paper. And most of the time this happens when the spouse is aged, all right? Then you can send someone. But it is important, this form needs to be signed. Without that, our hands are tied. Let me go with other forms here, show you shortly, then I go with the frequently asked questions, and they'll take questions from you. One important thing, when you make a call for the funeral or reporting a death, make sure the death is announced or pronounced by the professional. What that means? If death occurs at the hospital, you're not going to make the pronouncement, right? Family member not going to make the pronouncement. The hospital doctor will make the pronouncement. If this person is at home under hospice care, who's going to make the pronouncement? The hospice nurse. So if the person is under hospice care and you think that person have passed away, you do not need to call the police. Okay, if you call the police, the case gets complicated and the funeral may be delayed for 2 days. Okay, you call the hospice nurse, the nurse comes, makes the pronouncement, and then we come and pick the body. If the person is not under hospice care, you call the police comes, they dispatch the paramedic, and they make the pronouncement, then they find out from the medical examiner whether they're releasing the body or not releasing the body, and so on. But if the person is under hospice care, do not call us, hey, person passed away, until the nurse comes and makes the pronouncement officially, or doctor, or whoever, right? Because I had a case, a family calls me, and they said, brother, can you come and pick the body, right? You know, you already smiling, you know what that means, right? Okay, so I said, okay, brother, text me the address. I'm waiting 20 minutes, 25 minutes, no address came. And this is night time, you know, I'm getting up 12 midnight and all of that. This is before I putting into answering service, right? Last 2 years, I changed to answering service now, okay? So, 25 minutes, no call come, and I'm like, I'm sleepy, all of that. I call, brother, I'm waiting for the address so I can dispatch my staff or myself or the mortuary transportation service to come and pick the body. And the brother said, I think he is still breathing. I'm like, if I send Ron, go pick the body, first of all, we cannot touch the body until official pronouncement is done. We cannot touch it. So if I know my friend or someone and they call me, well, the person passed away, I'm going to go to their home to pick the body, but I'm going to sit in their home and start doing the paperwork. I'm not going to go close to the body even. When the nurse comes, she comes in, she makes the pronouncement, I take the paper from her, I said, is the pronouncement done? She said, yes, pronouncement is done, this is the time of death, this. Then I'm going to touch the body. We are not allowed to. And this brother said, oh, I think he's still breathing. Imagine I send Ron there, who gets mad anyway in the night when I call him to pick the body. And the person gets up at the back of the van. So official pronouncement has to be done. Just don't call before that. All right? Okay. I'm going to just go one by one form here. Cemetery disclaimer. See that? The one I was telling you. Legal next of kin, relationship deceased. I'm going to give you 1 minute to read if you can read properly from far away. Okay? This is basically the cemetery. We are making arrangement in a cemetery of your choice. We have no control of the cemetery. If we go there, there's a water, there is a grave not open properly or anything. It's nothing on the funeral director. It's just the cemetery. On your behalf, we're going to request them to fix. One time I went to Jersey State Memorial Park. They opened the grave, and the water, dirty water, like sewer water, and the family is mad at us. I said, brother, listen, you have signed this paper. No, I didn't read it. Okay. What can I say? I'm telling you to read everything what I'm giving you, right? Okay, I'm gonna request the cemetery. The cemetery said, no, this is the place I'm gonna bury. What I'm going to do? Finally, one person called the board member and all of that. He said, okay, let's open the grave another spot. The family called, not us. So cemetery disclaimer, this form, you will sign it. You get the funeral schedule from us also, the one I was just telling you earlier, but it is in a more proper format. It will say tentative funeral schedule of such and such person at such and such time at such and such mosque. Ghusl will be at that time. Viewing, yes or no. If viewing is yes, then what time the viewing is. Mosque, Islamic Center, which center you are doing the funeral. Imam, which imam is going to be in charge, right? Which imam is going to be in charge, because some funerals, 4 or 5 different imams comes at the masjid, right? So I want to make sure there is one lead imam who's family want it to do, right? And then that imam, out of respect, asks other imams to do the dua and so on also. But it's the family who tells me which one they want, okay? Salatul Janazah, what time? Funeral procession, what time? Cemetery, which cemetery? Primary contact, secondary contact, all right? So you will give me who will be the primary contact, and if that person don't pick up the phone, who is the secondary contact? And I ask the family to add me in their contact list as a funeral director. So if they see the phone ringing and it says funeral director, you need to pick the phone right away, because I need something urgently, because you want the funeral tomorrow morning, right? If you don't pick up for 3-4 hours, then funeral not happening. So you put next to it, funeral director. This is casket handling, the pallbearers I was telling you earlier, 6 names you give me. At the cemetery, everybody will carry the casket to the grave site itself. Then I'm gonna move everybody away, and I'm gonna say family wants only these 6 people to lower the casket in the grave. So please, everybody move back. Once the casket is lowered in the grave, then everybody will come close and imam make the dua, okay? I want to make sure the funeral goes very smooth. Backup funeral director, I have a backup funeral director. Let's say if I make an arrangement for tomorrow after Zohar prayer, a burial, and I gave you the schedule, I go in the night, I lose my phone, for example, or I go to the hospital, I get sick, whatever. A funeral is set already, so you want to make sure the funeral goes smooth, then my backup funeral director, Ron Jasinski or Andrea or Glenn, someone will come and complete all the legal paper, and religious part is done by the imam anyway, okay? They will do all the legal paperwork for the state registrar and the cemetery, right? Urgent contact is my assistant Fatma. This one, when you come in arrangement conference, I ask you to add her name as an assistant funeral director in your contact list. If you are getting a call from her after making all the funeral arrangements, that means there is something wrong. I get sick or something happened, she will inform you. You will have primary contact, secondary contact. She will say, Brother Afzal sick, whatever, funeral will go as scheduled. Okay? So this is the form. How much time we have, Brother Azhar? 20? Okay, let me finish quickly then. General price list. You're not going to understand this, okay? You're not going to understand this. This general price list, we have to send to the Federal Trade Commission and New Jersey Mortuary Board with all the disclosures in there. It has the cost for cremation, burning, everything. Because we are supposed to serve all faith. So one form. One of the brother comes to me and see general price list, says, brother, astaghfirullah, you have cremation in your general price list, burning, all of that. Say, brother, we're not going to do any of that. But we have to put it in this format. So all the cost you pay has to come from here. Has to come from here. We have to send it to the Federal Trade Commission for approval. Every time we make any changes, we have to send one to the New Jersey Mortuary Board. And the inspector comes, he takes all of this, write it down, whatever he is to do. Okay, general price list. Comes like this. Medicaid statement of resources form. If the person is eligible for Medicaid, I send that information to the county board, whichever the county the person used to live, right? I send the information, deceased name, social security, whatever, to get the approval. They tell me whether the person is approved or not, and they tell me, yes, the person is eligible. Please make sure get all the bank statements from the family. I have a case where the family says the person has no money. Later on, Medicaid found he has $20,000 in the bank. Medicaid declined it. They gave conditional approval, okay, is approved, eligible, then they start the investigation. And you cannot do, okay, well, let me just move all the money out. They go 3 months back. Okay, they go 3 months back. They send me this information. They want to know how much cash the deceased has, bank accounts, life insurance, personal real estate, so on, all of that. We have to send all of this information to the Medicaid. Okay? Consent of services form I told you earlier, this authorizing Muslim funeral services to do the burial of your loved one according to Muslim practices. It depends if the spouse is alive, the person is married, or how many children are there. If there is no spouse, then majority of children, important, majority of children. I have cases where the family fight with each other. So if the deceased have 5 children and no spouse passed away, right, or divorce or whatever, there's 5 children. Out of that, I need 3 of them to consent to these services, to sign this paper. Okay, I had a case, one person said, no, I want to take my mom to California. 2 of them said, no, I want to bury here. This, that, all of this. I said, you guys resolve this until there is no funeral bodies here, and let me put in the cooler. Right? Okay, so at the back, there is who can authorize the funeral. This is the state law here. Who can? Okay, who can? All I can tell you that if the deceased have none, or the children don't agree, or brothers and sisters don't agree, all of them don't agree, we go to the court. And then the judge gives the judgment to bury the deceased according to what the judge wishes to. So we had the cases where I did not even bring the body from the medical examiner because I didn't have any legal next of kin, and the court is the court. I said, just keep it. Body was frozen for 1 month. Once the court gave the order to do the funeral, then I got the body and did the funeral. Our hands are tied. We follow all the laws. Okay? So consent of services, if you see it, they have to be signed, all of them. Okay? Majority of children. If it is a spouse, it is easier. Okay? It is easier. While I'm talking about this, one more thing I'm going to give you information. You know, when you create the will, right? In your will, a lot of people write their funeral will also. They say, well, when I pass away, please send my body to Pakistan for burial, or bury in this cemetery, or don't let this son to come and see me, all of that, right? And I see it, right? All of that. Unfortunately, anything you write in your will about your funeral becomes null and void. You can write whatever you want. You can say, when I die, please my body need to be transferred to Pakistan. Buried in this cemetery, this. You die, that became null and void. Your legal next of kin, according to the state law, will make the decision. Maybe they will honor your request, or they say, no, I don't want to honor anything. Right? Alhamdulillah, in Muslim, there is no issues, Majority of time they agree, right? But non-Muslim, there is always issue. They assign funeral agent. They don't trust any of their, they say, no, let me get a funeral agent. So they sign a paper called funeral agent. It bypasses everyone, a spouse, children, brothers, sisters, everything. There's a funeral agent. Now the deceased is at the mercy of funeral agent, right? The funeral agent say, I don't know why he wrote that I want to do this, use this casket, do my burial this, null and void. I'm going to do this way. So you cannot legally enforce it. It becomes null and void. Clear? Okay? But alhamdulillah, Muslim is not a. Okay. Objection to autopsy form. If you are objecting to autopsy, you need to complete this form. Which person is objecting to autopsy? What is the relationship, right? And then why you want this autopsy? Because you say our religion is Muslim Islam, and then they want you to understand that you will never know the exact cause of death without autopsy. Now, later on, you want to take the death certificate to the life insurance company, and they say, well, I want to claim the life insurance, $1 million insurance. Life insurance company say, why he passed away? I don't know. Denied. So I'm giving you different scenarios, right? They will decline it because you did not do the autopsy even. And they don't know the cause of death. The death certificate will say, cause of death, unknown. When it says unknown, the insurance company, they have big lawyers, right? They're going to make all excuse not to give you $1 million, right? So you have to make decision based on all of these things. This is release authorization, Department of Health form, I already showed it, this, objection, this is the one first I showed you, objection to autopsy is the county medical examiner. This is the state medical examiner. This is the state medical examiner in Newark. They have a separate form. They also put a lot of things, and it has to be notarized and sent to them. So as I said, if this is a case for medical examiner, the family or their delegate need to come to my office because I have access to fax machine, email, I have access to all of that there, okay? Even if you're doing the funeral at Al-Falah here, if this is medical examiner case, you need to come there, do everything, and then the body will already be transferred here, and the ghusl and everything can start, but I'm going to do the paperwork, okay? Release authorization, renunciation, statement of funeral goods and services. This is the one I was telling you about. All the cost, everything has to go here. In this format, it has to be in this format. So if somebody asks me, for example, like I get a call from the families, right? They say, brother, how much usually the funeral cost? Right? I say, I don't know. Which cemetery you want to do the burial? Right? There are cemeteries, their cemetery cost is $1,300. To cemeteries, their cemetery cost is up to $6,000. There are cemeteries who charge weekend $1,200, $1,300 extra. There are cemeteries who do not charge it. There are cemeteries who require a vault, which itself is around $1,600, $1,700. There are cemeteries which do not require vault. All I can give you is the funeral home charges. And I cannot just give you funeral home charges like this. See, there is an option here. It says price quotation, not an arrangement. I have to fill this and send to you. I have to fill this and send to you so you know. I have to put some information here for you. And it has the disclosures here. It has the disclosure for embalming. Everybody knows what is embalming? Just preparation of body if you are delaying the funeral. State law is 48 hours. If somebody dies now, I have up to 48 hours to bury the deceased. Then otherwise, I have to either put the deceased in the cooler at 36 degrees, or I need to embalm the body. Now, if the family says there is no viewing, then I won't embalm the body, but keep in the cooler. If you want to send the body abroad to Pakistan, India, wherever, first of all, why you want to send there, right? Why you want to send there? There are two reasons you want to send abroad, right? Anybody knows what are the two reasons? Why? Maybe one. Family is there, and you want to bury next to someone. That may be one reason. What is the other reason? Huh? They are waiting? Deceased will is null, void. But okay, let's say you are acknowledging it, okay, honoring it. Basically, there are two reasons you send the body to abroad, okay? Why you want to send? Either you take the body will be sent from here to abroad, and you're not gonna open the casket, you're not gonna open the body, it will go in the casket in a special container, you take from the airport, you're gonna take to home if you wish to, but you're not going to open it. And then you do Salatul Janazah, maybe another, and you bury the deceased. Right? The other maybe, body will go there, and family will open the body, want to see the face, and so on. Right? What is the goal of the family in your opinion? Second one, right? Majority of family send the body there so the other family members see and all of that. If you're sending body to Pakistan, it's going to be at least 24 hours. Body is passed away here. Now we're going to start working with the US Customs, all airline, all of that. The airline don't go on the same. Some airline takes once a week and all of that. And then you did not embalm the body. I put in the cooler, right? The body arrives there. You think you can see? Brother Azhar, Brother Azhar, can be the condition of the body on the tar, on the airport, in warm and all of that, you're not going to be able to see it, right? Then if you want to see it, then what we need to do? We need to embalm the body. We need to disinfect the body, all organs out, all blood out, all chemicals inside. It's a very brutal process. When I was in the college, I was doing my training. The first time I did, I passed away there. The second time at the funeral home, I passed away again during the embalming, and my funeral director, preceptor, who is training me, he just dragged me and put it next to the body. He said, go sleep. I woke up, he said, get up, let's do the work again. I think that's how they teach you. So it's what family wants to do. So if family says, no, we just not gonna open, it's gonna be all closed, so then I don't need to embalm it. I'm gonna put the body in the sealed casket, right? Then the airline will waive embalming because you're not opening it. If the deceased is, whichever condition is, you just bury. So, get it? Okay? So will have embalming disclosure. What are the services you're paying, transportation, optional packages, all of this, which casket you want to use. The casket can range anywhere from $495 to thousands and thousands of dollars. If you want a mahogany casket with pillow, all of this, or just the plain pine casket. Casket is a requirement by all the cemeteries, okay? We cannot bury without casket. We have to bury with casket. So either you bury, some cemeteries are allowed to put the body on the ground and then put the casket upside down. Some cemeteries allow. That cemetery don't allow, the Basking Ridge. Okay? They don't allow. How much so again, you are the one who's going to decide. If say, well, no, brother, I don't want to use this basic casket. You have plain pine casket, doesn't look good. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to order a new casket for you. It will come 2-3 days later. I don't keep that because 99.9% Muslims use very simple basic casket, right? So I'm not going to use, so it will take 2-3 days funeral. Why the funeral delayed? Okay, that's why it's getting delayed, okay? And then you have here, in transportation, for funeral procession, when I started this career, by the way, by profession, I'm an electrical engineer. Okay, I started part-time, they get attending college, this. Now, 2 years ago, I just quit my every job. Just this is my primary income and my primary way of living. Even though my wife, when the call comes in the night, she puts her both fingers here and says, slow, too hard, talking too loud, all right? And she told me to quit. I said, so many people depend here now, okay? So this, in transportation, the family asked me, you are the one who's going to decide in funeral procession, are you okay with van to transfer the body to cemetery in funeral procession? Or you want hearse, limousine, all of that. If you want van, it's $375. But if you want limousine, hearse, and all of that, it's $850. So that's why when the family tells me how much it costs, I say, I don't know. I'm going to prepare this and write it down for you. You decide what you want to do. And if you spend on hearse and all of that, you will be way away from Medicaid, right? You want hearse and all of this, then you also want the Medicaid to pay for funeral. Clear? So if the family decide about the cost, not we just following your wishes. I have a case, I didn't know that. This brother, on the day of funeral, he came, and I'm loading the casket in the van. His van is nice, we're just going, we're not showing off anything, right? By the way, funeral for non-Muslims in this country everything is show off, okay? It's a show off. The funeral is not for the deceased. Funeral is not for the deceased. Funeral is for the living, family members. So they go on. So that's why when you see the non-Muslim funeral, the deceased, if you see the deceased in the casket, looks very nice and all makeup and all very nice, right? Because they want to give the last impression to the family, your loved one looks so nice, go on with your life after that. But it doesn't make any difference for the deceased as our belief, right? Whether the deceased looks nice or not. Because when I was going to the college and they were teaching me restorative art, how to make the deceased look laughing, right? How to hide all of the, on the face, and I'm coming home and I'm asking my wife, why are you using this brush, use the cover girl makeup or this, all of that. Am I asking my wife, what all is this? She said, okay, I'll explain you all of that. So I go to the college and then, okay, let's use this brush for this, for eyebrows for this. I'm like, okay, whatever. Just somehow I have to pass the exam because we have to practice on the what do you call, sorry? Yeah. We have to make the ear, we have to make the nose, everything. So if the deceased is, and family want viewing and the ear is not there or nose or whatever, then you have to make it. And there are funeral directors who make $5,000 per hour going from this state to restore the body. Probably millionaire and billionaire uses them, okay? So this is, you decide about the cost of the funeral. It says who prepared this. It says, is the licensed funeral director with such and such license number is the one who prepared this statement. And this, you have to sign it, I have to sign it, and so on. 2 more slides and we're done. Okay, this one I already showed you, waiver of liability. When performing the ghusl, I already told you when you're performing the ghusl, you have to waive that if you get sick, if something happens, there's whatever, dreaming or all of that, funeral home is not responsible. Okay? All right, let's go quickly to frequently asked questions, and we are done. Okay. Slideshow from current slide. Okay. Frequently asked, what should we do when death occurs? Anybody want to give an answer? What should you do when the death occurs? At home or hospital or whatever. You contact the funeral home, right? You contact the funeral home, funeral director, right? Huh? Yeah, no, but it says death already occurred, so pronunciation have to be done. You're right. Pronunciation have to be done, okay? If at home or under hospice care, hospice nurse, no police, I already explained you. When can we announce funeral to the family and friends? Are we ready to release, the body is released to the funeral home? So if the death occurs now, can you announce to the family and friends that funeral is tomorrow after Zohar prayer? Why? Because all those permits needed first. You go announce, I have many cases, the family, I already announced the funeral for tomorrow after such and such time. I said, well, you announced, you may have to retract it. I don't know. I confirm the funeral to you? Right? Now, also, are we ready to do the funeral once body is released to the funeral home? Yes or no? The body from the hospital, I have it, or from home, I have it at the funeral home, or I have it here. Are we ready to do the funeral? No? See, I told you will know the answers when I ask you. No, why? Because all paperwork, permits. If you want to expedite, follow the direction. Get the paperwork, Department of Health, release form, all of them complete quickly. All right? Okay. After confirmation by funeral director, okay? When do we expect the death certificates? Either same day or next day from the township or state, it takes 2-3 weeks, okay? How do we find out if Medicaid will pay partial cost of the funeral? We get the information from you, the Social Security, all of that, we send to the Medicaid, right? And they tell us whether the person is eligible or not. If the person is eligible, we have to do a payment in such a way that it remains eligible. Remains eligible. And you need to understand you cannot spend more than $1,570 on your own. I have a family say, no, bring hers, this, and then, no, can Medicaid pay? No, all right? Huh? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. When someone gets the Medicaid, how they get it? Right? So they go financial, they give the Medicaid. Now, in New Jersey, there are 75 Medicaid programs. If you have Medicaid, doesn't mean you have burial benefit too. You may have the medical part. They're covering all the medical, hospital, or doctor, all of that, but may not cover the burial. So that's why we have to just call them. They tell us eligible, they send the form, and we start the process. Okay, why the funeral is delayed? Anybody give me the answer for this? Like? Right? And most of the time, the funeral gets delayed. Of course, the doctor certificate permits all of that, and family not following the direction. Remember I told you, 4 hours, no form filled up, and then all of a sudden wake up, oh, funeral. Why is not happening? All right? So, who handles funerals during night time? I already told you, right? Answering service, do not hang up. Give them the information. They will connect to Fatima, and they will start from there. Okay. You go question now. Any question? Otherwise, we just close it. No. No. This is, I prepare it. So first, initially you weren't going to contact me, and when you sit with me or the funeral director, then the funeral director going to ask you, which imam do you want? Okay, which imam do you want? You say, okay, I don't know yet. Okay, here, call whichever you want. Call now. Or let us know a little bit later. Right? Which mosque you're doing the funeral? I'm not sure. Maybe I want to do Al-Falah. Okay, that's fine. We'll do it Al-Falah. So that information later on, right? This all is given at arrangement conference. You don't know the answer for anything. You're going to say, okay, well, I'll get it for you in few hours or 1 hour. What? My backup? If I already made an arrangement, I have backup funeral directors. If I did not make the arrangement, you're going to have to call and find out some other funeral home, some other funeral director, right? Of course. The non-Muslim funeral director, he's going to do all the legal paperwork, he's going to prepare because he can only do it. Nobody else can do it. Imams, or they cannot do it. And then he's going to work with Imam. Imam, when you're washing the body, okay, I hear the body is here, go wash the body, do shrouding, everything, do Salatul Janazah, all of that. When you're done, I'll be here. I'm going to take the body and go to the cemetery and sign all the paperwork. So non-Muslim can do too. Well, I had funerals I did in 3 hours also. So what happened, the person passed away at home 10:30 a.m. and luckily it was a hospice case. And the family member was a doctor also. So the nurse said, okay, I'm going to check with the doctor who to certify. And Brother Azhar is a doctor and he knows that doctor professionally. They say, can you go please certify in EDRS? Once they certify, I can get the permits very quickly. So 3 hours, the funeral was, Salatul Janazah was happening. So it all depends, So many times the funeral gets delayed if the death occurred at the hospital. and the family stays in the room. As long as the family stays in the room, they don't process the case. Most of the hospital gives around 4 to 6 hours for the family to come and visit and all of that. Now, if you want a funeral and you call me 8 a.m. in the morning and you want a Zohar prayer, I tell the family, maybe 10, 15 minutes you stay in the room and tell the nurse to process the case. Meaning, put the body in the body bag, leave it in the room if I'm picking from the floor, or send to the morgue. And push the doctor and the hospital to complete EDRS and certification. While I'm doing this, my assistant Fatima is working on the permits. But if the family says, no, I have many family members coming and visiting and all of that, then don't expect the funeral to be at Zohar prayer. So I give a lot of tips to the family when the call comes. Any questions, sister? Non-hospice? Yeah, this is not under hospice care and passed away, and so the police called the medical examiner, and the medical examiner tell him, the deceased is 90-year-old or 70-year-old and was under this PCP, and I see all these medicines he was taking. The medical examiner will call the PCP and say, hey, this was under your care, he has been seeing you. Are you willing to certify the death? And the primary care physician says, yes, and then they don't take it. Remember I told you, who wants to take the body, right? The medical examiner is busy with so many bodies, and they are so happy that the family is requested no autopsy even. Okay? That's it, I guess. Police. You call police because you don't know if he passed away or not even. Remember pronouncement? You call the police, what police going to do? They're going to send the paramedic. They will come and test and whatever they need to do to make the pronouncement. Once they make the pronouncement, they call the medical examiner, and the medical examiner tells whether to release the body to the funeral home or not, depending upon the case. Done? No, so they take the body, and if you do not want autopsy, the funeral home, the funeral director will ask you for that form. Verbally, we will tell them no autopsy. You tell them no autopsy also. It depends upon the time of death, we send the form to them. Is it? For young, yeah, they are very hesitant not to do autopsy. Why this person passed away? What happened? But if it is 90-year-old, probably it was time anyway. Right? Yes, that's it. Any other question before we close? No? Done, brother? Yes. Okay, good. See, this rank too. Okay, inshallah.